Happy day, friends, and welcome. I am Macy LaShawn Sledge, and my intention for being here is to empower and uplift those of you who are on your journey of healing, of finding peace in mind, body, and spirit. And for those of you who are currently in the process of awakening to the truth of who you are. So, thank you so much for being here. If you are new here, welcome. I appreciate your presence. I appreciate your attentiveness to doing the work. I appreciate you, and I'm grateful to you for being willing to show up and do the work. That's what we do here. We get into the truth, we get into the work so that we can be exactly who we were created to be. So, thank you for being here. This is our August heart to heart for this year. And I'm really excited to get into this conversation. I will say, just starting out, that August is going to be a very beautiful month. And it'll be a very beautiful month for those of us who listen. Okay, for those of us who actually listen, for those of us who actually tend to the intuitive impulses, the intuitive guidance that's flowing from within us, August is going to be I'm hearing the word triumphant. August is going to be a very triumphant month for those of us who actually listen. Okay, so it's one thing to hear, notice, observe the intuitive impulses and the intuitive guidance that's flowing from within, right? And then it's another thing to see it, recognize it, notice it, and then listen, right? And so, again, August will be a triumphant month for those of us who actually listen to those intuitive impulses and follow through on them, with them, right? So, this conversation is titled Initiating Self-Trust. So, through the month of August, most of what I share here on the channel will really focus on initiating self-trust, right? So, in order to listen to those intuitive impulses, you have to be able to. It's important that you trust yourself. So, August is all about if you struggle with trusting yourself, if you struggle with hearing that voice and trusting that voice enough to actually follow through, to actually take the steps that are being laid out in front of you, if you struggle with trusting yourself, then what I share here on the channel will kind of encourage us, will empower us to really activate that self-trust so that we can begin to really create the life that wants to express itself through us. Okay, so that is where our focus will be for the month of August. And like I said, as I've been, because this has been coming through for a few days now, so as I've been kind of meditating over it day by day, I'm just getting more and more excited about what can unfold in my life, but also just what can unfold for many of us as a collective, again, if we are willing to listen. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and close our eyes so that we can take some deep breaths, so that we can center ourselves, so that we can ground into this present moment, so that we can be open and available to receive what it is that Spirit has for us here in this moment. So wherever you are, if you're able to, close your eyes. Place one hand on your heart space. And as you've placed your hand on your heart space, go ahead and begin to notice your heartbeat. I like to say, feel into your aliveness. Your heartbeat lets you know that you are alive, lets you know that you are still capable, lets you know that you are still capable that you can pull through, that you are pulling through in this present moment. And as you start to feel your heartbeat, go ahead and begin to notice your breath. Notice the quality of your breath as you're breathing in. Notice the quality of your breath as you are exhaling. Can you intentionally slow down a bit as you inhale? Can you intentionally slow down as you exhale? Gentle breaths in and out through your nose. And we'll go ahead and take our first deep breath in together. So breathing in deeply through your nose, sending your breath into your belly, deep into your belly. And then blowing the breath out through your mouth. Deep breath in. Blow the breath out. Deep breath in. And blow the breath out. And we'll take 3 more deep breaths in, this time breathing in through the nose and exhaling out through your nostrils. So deep breath in. Exhaling out. Slow and controlled, intentional, deep breath in. Exhaling out. Deep breath in. And exhaling out. Continue to keep your eyes closed for just a moment and allow yourself to just observe how you feel after connecting intentionally with your breath. Just observe, just witness, just notice. Do you feel more relaxed? Do you feel more open? Do you feel more prepared to receive? And then when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. And we'll jump right into it. So again, the conversation for the month of August is centered around initiating self-trust, okay? So everything that has come through, everything that I'll share is really all about identifying maybe why there is a lack of self-trust, identifying what you can do to ground into that to actually initiate self-trust. And then I'll also be sharing each week some tapping meditations that will help us kind of break up those narratives that live within our minds and bodies that have caused us to not trust ourselves, right? To put the voices and opinions of other people over our own. We'll get into some tapping as well throughout the month of August, okay? So the first thing that I want to note is that there are some symbols that came up. A couple of things came up through a dream that I had last night, actually. And so I want to share those symbols. I won't speak too much around them, but I will just kind of share the notes, the couple of notes that I did write down. The first thing that came through that I want to share is RIP. We know RIP as rest in peace, right? But as it was coming through for me, as I wrote it down and I kind of sat with it for a moment, what came through was RIPP. And What that stands for is rest in people pleasing. So if you struggle with trusting yourself, it's because you are resting in a state of people pleasing. It's because you are resting in a state of people pleasing. And so, in order for you to initiate self trust, that is a behavior, okay? Because people pleasing is a learned behavior. So, in order for you to initiate self trust, you have to change that behavior. You have to begin to take steps to change that behavior, to let go of that behavior of people pleasing. Okay. The second thing was that in the dream, the next two things come from the dream. So the first thing is that in the dream, I was at a restaurant with some people in the mall, and I found $21. Okay, so I'm like, what is the significance of $21? And the first thing that came up is that, what came up with that is that throughout the month of August, Spirit really wants us to be paying attention to pay attention to how things show up in our experience. And the way that you'll know that it's spirit, that it's being orchestrated by the universe, that it's being, the way that you'll know that it's being orchestrated by God is because it's going to be a little odd. Like, right, what shows up and how it shows up, it's going to be a little, you're going to look at it like that's odd, but okay, right? That's odd, but okay, I'm going to go with it. So I found $21 in the dream. And the note that I wrote with that is that that's an odd amount of money to find, right? $21. Usually you find like 5 or 10 or 20. But I found $21. And so the note with that was that that's an odd amount, but always expect more than what you were actually expecting from the universe. Okay, always expect more than what you are actually expecting from the universe. So if I find some money, I expect it to be like a $20 bill, a loose $20 bill. I'm not expecting to find $21, right? But in the dream, I found $21. And so, the note from that is just that's an odd amount, yes, but always be expecting more than what you were actually expecting, right? Because the universe is going to show up in odd and peculiar ways. And if we're so set on it, whatever it is that we desire, if we're so set on it showing up in this one way, then we actually miss out on or become oblivious to how the universe is actually showing up in our lives, right? So just be open to the odd ways that the universe is showing up. And then the second symbol or thing that showed up in the dream is a cracked egg. So someone had left a carton of eggs on my car for me. Someone left a carton of eggs on the car, and I went outside to get them. And when we opened them up, one of the eggs was cracked. So the note that I wrote there, because in the dream, the person that was with me kind of made a little bit of a fuss over the cracked egg. And so the note that came up there was, are you creating a fuss over the one cracked egg when there's 17 others in the box? Okay. Are you creating a fuss over the one cracked egg when there's 17 others in the box? And that's really all I'm going to say about that. That's just something to meditate on. It's something to marinate over. It's something to kind of sit with, to really help you identify how it is that you are responding to life and the things that happen, right? Because our response and how we respond or how we react determines what happens next, right? So if I experience this cracked egg, if I see that there's a cracked egg in the quart carton, and I literally just said, this is all I'm going to say over this, but this is what's flowing through. If I open the carton and there's this one cracked egg and I make a fuss over that, then the potential for the 17 other eggs kind of leaves my mind, right? So just take note of how you're responding to what's happening in your life, especially during the month of August, especially during this new month. Just take note of how you're responding, because again, how you respond to what's going on determines what happens next, right? It's like a domino effect. Okay. So let's get into the notes. Um, let's get deeper into the notes, I should say. So, initiating self trust, that's what we're talking about for the month of August. That's what we're focusing on. And so, one of the first notes that I wrote under initiating self trust is that part of the reason why people struggle with trusting themselves is because they're still holding on to this, or there's still a part of them that's holding on to this narrative that says, because mother said so, or because father said so, right? So our parents and the people around us, they do pass on their values, they do pass on their morals, they do pass on their standards, they do pass on their the things that they have gathered throughout their lives. They pass those on to us. Some of them good, some of them good, but not good for us, right? And so, in order for you to initiate self trust, you really have to begin to identify how you are allowing that narrative of, because mother said so, because father said so. How are you allowing that narrative to dictate how you move? How are you allowing that narrative to dictate the decisions that you make? How are you allowing that narrative to dictate what it is that you give yourself to, what it is that you give your time, your energy, your attention, your focus to, what it is that you build your life around, right? So letting go of that narrative, because mother said so, because father said so, is one of the first steps that came through that will help you begin to initiate self-trust, right? And you may not be holding on to that narrative when it comes to everything in your life, but there are some areas where you are holding on to that narrative and it is hindering you from moving forward or from living your life in the way that you truly desire to live it. And not even in the way that you truly desire to live it, but it's hindering you from being open to the expansive energy that is God that lives within you. It's hindering you from being open to allowing that energy to flow freely through you with no inhibitions. Okay. So then going into the next point, it's going to be important, if you want to initiate self-trust, it's going to be important for you to connect with and identify your personal values. Again, our parents, the people around us, they pass on their values, they pass on their morals and standards, and some of them are good, and then some of them are good, but just not good for us. Right? So it's identifying, taking out the time to connect with and identify your values and your personal values so that you can build your life around those values. Okay? Around standards that truly align with the will of your heart and soul. Okay? So that's one of the things that you want to take some time this month to sit down and meditate and pray and really get to know yourself through meditation and through just being still, through contemplation, and asking yourself, what are my values? What do I truly value? And when you identify what it is that you truly value, you begin to see how exactly life wants to express itself through you. Oh, okay. So these are actually my values. These are the things that I value. This makes sense. This is why I desire to experience life in this way. This now we're making the connection. So now we can begin to focus on experiencing life in a way that truly aligns with our heart, right? And that's exciting to me, right? That's exciting to me. Like, oh, okay. Part of the reason why I was maybe a little afraid to take that step or to to go wherever it may be, to do whatever it may be, part of the reason why I was a little bit afraid to do that is because doing that was going against someone else's values and standards. But now that I've identified my own values and standards, I can do it because I'm here to live for me and not others, right? That's beautiful. So also initiating self-trust, what does that look like? It looks like okay, so here we go, just keeping the flow. It looks like making small or big decisions that align with those values that you've identified. It looks like making small or big decisions that align with those values that you've identified. Now, if you truly struggle with self-trust, with trusting yourself, then I want to encourage you to, of course, start with making the smaller decisions. Start by making the smaller decisions. It could be something as small as deciding to go see a movie by yourself, right? It could be something as small, it could, whatever it is for you, allow yourself to make those small decisions, because that's how you begin to initiate self-trust. You've identified your values, and now you are going to start making small and or big decisions that align with those values, okay? And then the next note that came through is just remembering that there are other solutions. This is also how we initiate self-trust, right? When we struggle with trusting ourselves, we can't see any other solution. It's difficult for us to see the other solutions because we're not trusting our imagination, because we're not trusting our mind, because we're not trusting the wisdom that lives within us to present those solutions to us. So because we don't trust ourselves, those solutions aren't clear to us. So when you begin to initiate self-trust, you begin to experience that there really are other options available to you. And when you begin to trust yourself, you can begin to choose the options that are really in alignment, again, with you, the will of your heart and soul, and your values, okay? And then the last note under that is, listen, when you initiate self-trust, what that begins to look like is you choosing what some would call or consider to be an unorthodox path, right? And I think there's another note that I'm going to touch on that might tie into a little bit, so we'll just go ahead and move on, is that trusting yourself, initiating self-trust, it looks like you choosing an unorthodox path. Okay, so then also a part of initiating self-trust, or a part of this journey as you're moving throughout this month, is breaking through mental barriers. So one of the ways that you can really know, a couple of ways I will say, that will help you to identify if you struggle with trusting yourself, is that you have this tendency to perform for love. You have this tendency to perform for love. Okay? And what I'm hearing is that there's this tendency to keep up with doing the things, or with living in a way that other people, that might make other people comfortable, so that you can maintain the love that's between you and someone else or other people, right? But if you have to perform for love, remember, please hear, that is not true love. That is not true love. If you have to perform for it and someone stops loving you because you stop performing, they're not truly loving. Their understanding of love is what is messed up, and you can't control how someone else loves, right? If someone stops loving you because you're no longer performing in the way that they would like for you to perform, that's out of your control. You just have to pray that they can let go of that misunderstanding if that's a part of their path. And then you also have to just keep showing up and keep loving how you have been showing up and loving, right? That's your responsibility there, is just to keep loving unconditionally. And so, how you can recognize and know that that you lack self trust is if you are performing for love. Okay? The other way that you can know that you lack self trust is if you are someone who conforms. Okay? If you are someone else who conforms to someone else's state of being, if you are someone who conforms to someone else's frequency, if you are someone who conforms to someone else's path, okay, it's very clear that you can feel, that you can hear your intuitive voice calling you to a new path. But again, because you don't know how someone will respond, because you don't know how someone will react, because you're not sure if someone will keep loving you or not, you avoid taking that new path. So you continue conforming to the path that is comfortable because they're on the path that's comfortable. Okay? Are you conforming to someone else's state of being? Are you conforming to someone else's frequency? Are you conforming to someone else's path? This is how you can know if you struggle with initiating self-trust. And then one of the notes that I wrote with that is that you don't have to rebel to be a nonconformist. You just have to listen to and trust yourself. Because oftentimes what happens is if we're on this path of conforming and we begin to feel and hear that we're being called to something new, but we don't trust ourselves to take that step. And then because we are not listening and we are betraying ourselves, we start to experience this heaviness in our body. And so then we take things to the extreme and we become rebellious. But Spirit is saying you don't have to rebel to be a nonconformist. You simply have to listen to and trust yourself. And once you begin to listen to and trust yourself, that heaviness begins to dissipate, right? So something that I believe many of us will be experiencing in the month of August is we'll be moving on, we'll be moving forward, we'll be moving out. What joy. Moving on, moving forward, moving out. Moving on from jobs that don't align, moving on from relationships that don't align, moving on from internal narratives that don't align, moving on. What is it? So as you're moving throughout the month of August, you will begin to identify what it is that you are being asked to move on from. Okay? So that's important. Remember, you are being asked to move on from some things. And again, if you choose to move on, that means that you've been doing the work to initiate self-trust. If Spirit shows you what it is that you need to move on from, but you don't move on, if in September you're in the same space, or you haven't at least created some plans, written down some plans, right, to initiate in the coming months to move on, that's self-betrayal. And that means you're still struggling with trusting yourself. Now, don't get me wrong, this is not going to be an overnight. You're not just going to magically overnight start trusting yourself. It's a process, yes, but there are steps that you can take to begin to initiate that process. Again, have you started writing down the plans? This is what Spirit wants me to move on from. How am I going to make that happen? Let me start writing down the plans. Let me start doing my research. Okay? Moving forward, moving on, moving forward, moving out. Do you need to be in your own space? In order for you to stop conforming, is it important for you to move out? Is it important for you to move into your own space? Is it important for you to start taking steps towards making that happen at least by the end of the year, by the beginning of the year? Okay? Towards the end of the month, you will be able to see and feel yourself softening into this new reality. If you truly begin to listen to yourself, if you truly begin to take the steps necessary to initiate self-trust, you will begin to see and feel yourself softening into the new reality that wants to express itself through you. Okay? So, also, your plans, or the plans that God wants to execute through you, will be clearer. They will be clear. So if you felt, especially the first half of this month, I feel like many of us may have been unclear or just uncertain or just confused maybe about what we've been feeling, right? About how we've been feeling that it's time to move on, it's time to move forward. But like, if you've been feeling any type of way about that call, if you weren't certain of what the plans were, as you're moving throughout the month of August, as you're working on initiating self-trust, those plans will become more clear for you. Okay? What this requires from you, initiating self-trust, what this requires is for you to be very intentional and particular about how you spend your time. I feel like most of the conversations that I've shared so far in 2025 have mentioned this, okay? And so it's important that we listen. It's important that we listen. Again, this goes back to the conversation about conforming. If you feel like you always have to go there and go here and go there because other people are pressuring you or are wanting you to go into different spaces with them, if you feel like you have to do those things, that is you conforming. Okay, so Spirit is saying in order for you to truly initiate self-trust, you have to be more intentional and more particular about how you spend your time. And then another note that went along with that is not everything requires your attention. And I know that I mentioned that in another video. I don't know what video it was, but I know that that exact line was mentioned in another video. Not everything requires your attention. Not every event, not every whatever it is, not everything requires your attention. And again, if you feel pressured into spending your time in certain ways and you do it, again, that is self-betrayal. That is you not trusting that feeling within yourself that is saying, no, this is not for you. This is not how you are supposed to be spending your time right now. If you ignore that, that is self-betrayal. That is you still struggling with the self-trust. That is you conforming. Okay? And then another note that went along with that is that people will be fine without you. No one needs you to survive. Okay? People will be fine without you. No one needs you to survive. And again, if they respond in a way that is unloving, or if they stop loving you because you stopped showing up in the way you've always shown up and you only did it because you were people pleasing, if they stop loving you, or if they stop, if they stop being intentional or kind to you, that's not your problem. That's their problem. They need to work through that. That means there's something for them to process. That means there's something for them to work through. And you can't control what it is that they need to work through. Okay? So that is the heart-to-heart for August. We are initiating self-trust. And when I say that we are, I mean that we are initiating self-trust. And everything that we experience in September, in October, in November, in December, and forward, right? Because we're moving forward. So everything that we experience as we move forward will be a reflection of how we took all the time to initiate self-trust, of how we took out the time to let go of whatever it was that was standing in the way of us trusting ourselves. So let's all close our eyes for just a moment. Exhale your breath all the way out. Take a deep breath in. And sigh the breath out. Deep breath in. Sigh it out. Deep breath in. And sigh it out. Open your eyes. Thank you so much for being here with me. Thank you so much for being present for this conversation. This conversation wasn't just flowing from within me. This was flowing from within those of us who are present for this conversation. Those of us who are, again, doing the work to be more present with the truth of who we are, who are doing the work to awaken to the truth of who we are so that we can live lives that are soul fulfilling. Okay. Thank you for being here. If this conversation resonated with you, make sure, if you want, to leave a comment. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, please and thank you. And make sure you like and share if that resonates with you. I love you all so much, and I will see you for the rest of the work that we will be moving through this month. Bye.